Well, Patreon, you've screwed up yet again, but this time going after anime and Japanese art style. What does that even mean? Well, we're going to get into all of that. Hey, what is going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful and fantastic day today, and if not, hopefully you all will have it better tomorrow. Patreon, as many of you probably already know, has screwed up in the past in multiple different areas. Of course, if you don't think a certain way, they've been against people on that one. There's been a lot of things that have been issues in terms of Patreon in the past. Now, apparently, it seems that they are after anime. So this was brought up by Bob BQ, and this is what he stated on Twitter about the situation. What the F is this? S. Anime is basically all offensive now, Patreon. Do you not think for one moment that this is totally lacking any common business sense? If you don't want to do business with independent creators, just come out and say it. Now, this is the thing here. Patreon does have a response, and there's a couple of them. First off, Bobby Q shows a response that Patreon has, and then Patreon has one on their Twitter. So we will be looking over both of these. And just like in the past where Patreon's made very bad mistakes, well, this is yet again another terrible mistake made by Patreon. But then again, who's really surprised seeing how many times Patreon has done things that people, myself included, have disagreed with? So, looking at this. Hi everyone! Due to the recent notification from Patreon, I am working with the official staff to adjust the content these days. So the user will be suspended for a few days until the correction is completed. But don't worry, this pause is only temporary. This time Patreon officials strictly deal with two things. One, restriction and pressure on young people, Japanese style. Two, restrictions and pressure on external websites. Yeah, so let's put it like this right now. Patreon is over here basically saying, go support something on Subscribestar, for example, or Pixiv, somewhere else. That's basically what they're saying. Just go support something else, pretty much. Oh, man. I mean, seriously, Japanese style. That's the restriction and pressure here. Really, Patreon. That's your restriction and pressure. Okay. Regarding the first point, basically all Japanese styles can be said to be out. As long as you are Japanese style, even if the character has a big breast, the official said that it will be classified as a young person. So I had to delete 90% of the articles on Patreon. Although this adjustment does not affect the reward you ultimately receive, it will be a bit regrettable that you cannot directly see the update in advance on Patreon, and I will try to improve this later. For example, look for other platforms to showcase these works. Oh, that's so true though. I mean, at this point, look at other platforms. I mean, that is the truth. But I mean, like Japanese style, that doesn't mean that they're all young people, okay? It doesn't. and to say Japanese style, really, Patreon. 2. Regarding the second point, the official said that it would check your Patreon traffic source and confirm whether there is any illegal content. If there is illegal content, then it will also be used to limit your Patreon business. For example, if your Twitter or Pixiv has a Japanese-style suspected young person type work, Patreon will prohibit you from placing a link to Pixiv on Patreon, and you will also be prohibited from placing a link to Patreon on Pixiv. It's considered a violation. Because of this, I have now removed all links and asked users to search for Wario Patreon or Wario Gumroad to ensure that the source of the traffic cannot be traced. Also, they're also, mind you, they're also saying that if you have Japanese style art apparently, and you're trying to link it, then they're just going to put that against you as well. They'll prohibit you from putting the link in there. Wow. Alright. Wow. I mean, that's... Oh, Patreon. What are you doing? Says it will take me a lot of time to adjust the above content. It may take a few more days for Patreon to resume normal operation, and I may release the latest news of the creation in other ways in the future. After Patreon resumes operations, a new article will be posted to announce the relevant details. I will continue to complete the animation update this month, and the reward will be sent normally every other month. Now, of course, this obviously hasn't gone over well because this led to another Patreon hot take on Twitter because they responded again, as well as a lot of outrage on Twitter. So let's take a look at Patreon and what they have to say here on Twitter. We'd like to clarify a recent rumor about our guidelines. We do not limit any specific style like anime of art, but our guidelines do not allow offensive depictions of young people. If you have questions or want clarifications, you can always reach our team at guidelines.patreon.com. Now here's the thing, you know me, I do not like censorship. I've stated this multiple times, I don't like censorship. And, you gotta remember, this is art of fictional characters. I mean, we're talking about fictional characters here. But apparently, Patreon doesn't see it that way. And of course, they are over here trying to ban these sort of things. And think of it as, people like to have the freedom to express themselves, and art is the way people do it. I mean, I'm an artist. I mean, that's what I do. But, for Patreon to start doing this stuff, I mean, a lot of people are very upset over it. I mean, look at these responses. The thing is, many people think that anime style face automatically means that he or she is considered a young person. Is it true, or is it a translation error? Patreon responded by saying, we do not automatically consider anime-style characters to be young people. If you have questions or want clarification, you can always reach our team at, the place I said before. So, that's the thing. While Patreon's saying this, of course, they said that Japanese art style, which they earlier even stated that depicted young people. So, there, people are already questioning Patreon's statement. And of course, they're trying to say that, oh no, it doesn't mean that, right? Of course, them trying to say that, but when you don't have good clarification, Patreon, you leave people to question what you mean, which you have to spell it out better. So I mean, there's that problem. Many people took to Twitter also stating, at the very least, you need to provide more concrete line of which to compare against. But regardless of the reasons, that'd be unfeasible. Everyone here knows there's no line that'd be fair enough for the people making the choices, aka PayPal. Another person, considering anime has characters that are young looking, but actually adults, like 27, an example, you need to be a hell more clear on that rule. It's like saying to me, who looks 17 and going to 35 looks like a young person, coded, we do exist in real life. Another person responded saying, us short people do exist in real life, but they deny us. And another person had to say, so basically artists need to give all characters wrinkles or beards, or how do we know whether a bunch of lines or colors look too young or not? Who's decoding this and based on what criteria? It all seems extremely vague and arbitrary, to be honest. Care to clarify. See, that's the problem. When you don't make your rules specific, people don't know whether they're doing something that violates those rules or not, and Patreon's just sitting over here saying, oh yeah, well, just ask us, we'll tell you. But that's clearly not happening here. I mean, Patreon, this is another line of problems that you've caused again. And here's another person saying, translation, no anime faces no petite female characters. Another person said, this is still not clear since what you define as offensive is broad. And that's, as I say, it's a problem with Patreon. But then again, Patreon is known to have issues with people for having a different political spectrum than they have. And, this is basically saying, don't use Patreon. I mean, at this point, you might as well not use Patreon. I mean, for real. Another person responded saying, this coming from a company that considers my basic ass cosplay modeling as being 18 plus explicit, offensive stuff. I'm not really trusting your word here, guys. LMAO. And then, of course, in response to Bob BQ. It's almost like even Patreon has no GD clue what its own rules mean because they're super nebulous, and the line can vary wildly based on whichever intern handles the case. And also, PayPal's cancer, and if you are an NSFW artist, you should try to limit the effect it can have on your income as much as humanly possible because it will always 100% try to end NSFW content. It may be slow or fast, but PayPal must be excised for a platform to live on. Another person said, because Japanese style equals young people, what? This comes like a really over-the-top reaction. How can you even measure that? I mean, and that's true. I mean, just because you see a character and they may look young, how can you really measure that in art for a fictional character? I mean, that's something I don't think Patreon gets. And then another person goes on to say, WTF is Japanese style. That can literally be anything. And that's very true. It can be. It's very weird that Patreon said Japanese style specifically. That's a very strange statement, but it basically just feels like they're specifically targeting anime because they don't approve, is what it sounds like. I don't know. When I saw Japanese style, I immediately thought anime. And that's because that's pretty much what it is. They're just like the others, out to get anime, basically. Another person said, the war on anime is real. And that statement, at this point, could not be more true. I mean, it really couldn't be. Another person had to say, yeah, anime is bad because the Japanese are into fictional characters and drawings. I mean, that's basically the excuse that Patreon wants to use. Japanese art style, using that specific term, it's what it sounds like, doesn't it? It's their way of saying, hey, let's attack anime. That's their way of saying it. It really is. Another person had to respond, which, love the name, Uzume over there. Good old Neptunia reference. But this person had to say, even if it involved the young people, there's a 2002 amendment to the CPA that excluding fictional characters. This person goes on to also say, that being said though, I was never planning to use Patreon as a creator or as a consumer. If there's a creator I like, I'll donate on my own terms. If they want to paywall their content, that's fine. Can't say the support lasts in that case though. And, this is at this point just saying, get another platform. Go to Subscribestar, go to Pixiv, do something else, because if Patreon's going to do things like this, and they're just going to shut down people's creativity, they're going to try to censor art styles because they don't agree with it, then go to something else and try to promote your art there rather than being on Patreon. Because Patreon, in the past, they have been against people that have just been completely against their own political views. So, let's look at it like this. The statement I said earlier that one person pointed out on Twitter, the war on anime is real. That's because it is. And, we need to make a stand. We need to show that we are going to support anime in any way or form that we can. And this is why I say now is the time that we form Animes Gate. There couldn't be a better time for us to do this, to show our love for anime, to support it, to stand by it, to protect it from the Puritan SJW infestation that's trying to go on. They have already been trying their best to damage it, and I think it's time for us to protect the very hobby that we love, and to stand by the entertainment that has brought joy to many around the world. And this is where I think we should stand firm in unison together to protect the hobby we love. But anyways, let me know what you think about this entire situation down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and make sure you are still subscribed because YouTube is unsubscribing people from their favorite channels. So make sure you are still subscribed to all your favorite channels. Hit the video with a like if you enjoyed, and share the video on social media. Spread the word and get it out there. It's greatly appreciated, and it really helps out the channel a lot. Also, be sure to follow me on Discord. We have a wonderful community there. Also, it'll keep you up to date on when the newest videos will be released, as well as any other upcoming events in the future. So be sure to follow me on Discord. The link is in the description down below. But anyways, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful and fantastic day today. And remember, if today was not a good day, tomorrow could always be better. Take care of yourselves and everyone around you. And have yourselves a good one out there, everybody.